Hey there, comic friends. I'm Travis. It's time for an edition of What the Fugue, where I talk about what's going on with me in my week of comics. How's it going, everybody? Let's see. Where do I want to start? Let's start with right now. There's kind of a hubbub on Twitter and whatnot. A while ago, I talked about there was a survey that had to do this guy had did a survey of the creators, how much they were getting paid, all that kind of stuff and whatnot. Well, he's done another survey, and this one was on retailers, and he asked them some basic 20 questions or 25 questions to these retailers to get a sense of whatever. Because he ideally wants to be a comic book retailer at some point in his life, and that's why he's writing about comic books and comic book type stuff, as opposed to one of those people that's trying to get into the comic book industry by by doing reviews and that sort of stuff that we sometimes hear about, that people are trying that way to get their foot in the door. So he's just basically gathering information, and it's caused a little bit of excitement on Twitter right now. Right now, if you go on Twitter or you go to a lot of writers' web pages, you'll see them all laying lots of accolades on their artists, the people who are, of course, producing at least half, if not more than half, of what a comic book is. And about how it's a collaboration, about how they're simply just writing a script, the story's really done by the artist, all these different versions of Don't Forget My Artist. Which is great. And the reason that's happening is because there was this one graph they put up, and okay, so this is comic book retailers answering these 25 questions, and it's not always the retailer. It might be the appointed person that the retailer said, "Here, you answer these questions for me because I don't want to answer them," whatever that is. So the survey was sent out. I guess it was sent out to 75 different retailers across the world, not just in the United States. So I guess they had some response from Australia, some response from Canada. I think there's a response from England, and certainly the United States and whatnot. Only 25 retailers responded to the survey at all, and maybe not all of those questions, not all those 25 questions were answered by all 25 people taking the survey. So, to me, this is 25 comic book shops. I mean, I don't know how many comic book shops there are. I mean, I don't know how many there are in the United States, let alone in Canada. I have no idea. All I know is that I have friends that I talk to on Twitter and here on YouTube who live in Canada, and they're within a rock's throw distance of 4 or 5 shops just in the area they live in. So, to me, 25 is such a very, very small sampling. Maybe it's a broad sampling in the sense of it's all over the place, but still, 25 would not be enough for me to, bet the farm on or make any career decisions or anything like that. 25 just seems awfully small. Interesting, though. Interesting information. But one of the graphs, excuse me, one of the graphs shows, what's your decision making on what comics you order. And I think the choices were writer, artist, other, number ones, and I think there was another question as far as the choices were. And, this ranking. And writer and other were the number one answers. If you had a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being it's the only reason, these were scoring 4.25, somewhere like that is what they were scored at, and artists were just a smidgen. Were just a teeny little piece next to something else, and number ones weren't a reason at all. Supposedly, these people were ordering what they were ordering and stuff like that. So that graphic got some artists pretty excited about the fact that their lack of artists recognition. And you know, to some degree, legitimately so. Lots of times when people talk about comic books, you see a lot of these quasi-professional sites, the Newsaramas, the comic book resources, and some of those places when they review or they talk about books, lots of times it's whatever the writer, it's their book, and sometimes they literally completely forget to even talk about the artist altogether. So that got them kind of up in arms. They got cranky, and then we get this flood of writers talking about how important the artist is and the collaboration and whatnot, and all that kind of stuff there. And I don't disagree with any of that as far as it goes. I just think that I can't imagine that all retailers make all of their ordering decisions based on who the writers are. I mean, I do think that the writers have kind of gone through a heyday of being maybe more the rock star than what the artist is. But I think that waxes and wanes anyway. Didn't we have a time in the 90s clearly when Image and all the top name artists all left and went and made their own company, and all of that that went on was because they wanted the recognition and they had the pull, and they pulled. So I think it kind of goes back and forth, because I think largely when we think of like the Silver Age, the 70s books and stuff, I think we think artists in our heads before we think writers in our heads during that era. The Kirbys, the Ditkos, I think that's more of the types of things that we think about. So up and down. I think it'll change in some sense, I think. But they do bring up a good point. When we're here talking about, and I try to do this, I haven't really gone back over all of my videos to check and whatnot, but I try to, if I mention one creator, to mention the rest of the creators, I'm horrible, I don't mention letterers, I guess, very often, unless I have a problem with the lettering. But sometimes I talk about books and I don't talk about the creators at all. I just talk about the book itself, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But if I do talk about the book and I talk about a writer in it, I'm going to try and mention the artists, the colorists that are involved, because clearly the story is all of them. They all are what makes it. One person's writing a script, one person's, is actually doing the visuals. Actually, multiple people are doing the visuals. And so I think that's important and stuff. But I don't think it's as simple as what some of the writers on Twitter and on Tumblr and on their personal pages are making it, where they're going, oh, all I do is write a script, and the artist is doing all this other work, where it's a collaboration. We, as consumers and as people who are talking about their books, which helps generates consumption of their books, which helps pay their bills and allows them to continue to do the great stuff they're doing. We don't know that, because, and I say that from somebody, I feel like I'm fairly educated on how comic books are created and how comic books are made. But having read enough scripts, I know there's different degrees of how much the writer's controlling what is seen on the page. Granted, at the end of the day, the artist is the one who's actually drawing the picture, and the colorist is the one who's actually coloring the picture. I understand all of that, but to what degree is the writer the director telling them what the shot is supposed to look like? And I know there's lots of writers out here, and I think it's really cool, lots of writers who write for the artists that they have working for them. Depending on what the artist they have, depends on what kind of a story they write and how they write it. That makes perfect sense. In my years of working with other people, large portions of that, I've been an instructor in one sense or another, depending on what the person I'm working with, his degrees of capabilities are, depends on how much instruction I give. And I'm assuming that's how it is with writing, because that's what I've seen, reading lots of like Warren Ellis scripts and stuff like that. Depending on who he's working with, depends on what he gives for direction. I've seen him write scripts where he literally tells you the camera shot and angle, where it's coming from, and all of that. leaving very little for the artist to have to think out for themselves other than to actually do the drawing itself. And I know there are artists that are happy to have, 96% instruction there. So they don't have to think it through. So they don't have to spend their time trying to create the shot themselves. The instruction is there. They can then just happily spend their time, doing the actual art, drawing what the vision that the writer have of what they wanted the scene to be. And that's perfectly great. And of course, there are other ones where, the writer knows full well that this person is pretty masterful at doing their own storytelling and whatnot. And so they keep it incredibly loose. I want, hopefully this many panels and this kind of thing. And, this is what's going to be said during these things. And then it leaves up to the actual artist to design how that page is going to look and whatnot. And there are lots of creators who are very happy with that. So, whereas, like right now, there's some creators that are kind of coming at people who are talking about books and writing about books and that sort of thing, about how we're maybe not doing it right. And I don't know if right's the right word I want to use, but something along those lines, that there's no way for us to know, to be 100% educated, because we don't understand. It's not that we don't understand the process that goes on, but everybody's process is different. There's lots of times where I'll be talking about the book and I'll say, boy, I'd really love to know, did the writer say I want this kind of a moment and I want it to be like this and I want us to have this kind of stuff, or did the artist come up with that? This last run of Batman and Robin with Tomasi writing and Gleason doing art, how many of those beautiful, wonderful moments are Gleason understanding the story and him making the right shot, the close-ups at the right times, the faraway shots and all of that to strike the mood that needs to be struck, and how much of that is Tomasi giving directions as to those angles are going to be. I'm beginning to think more and more that a lot of that is Gleason from that first issue of Robin, son of Batman, just some of the close-up shots and the emotional value that was in that first issue. But we don't know that unless we're going to ask every creator all the time what goes on there. I'm always wondering that. Anytime I read a comic book and something interesting happens, I'm constantly wondering who made that decision, who came up with that, and thinking unless they talk about it, there's no way for us to know. So we make a certain amount of assumption, or you do like I do a lot of times, and I go, I don't know which one of them did this, but this is cool. I think to some degree, a lot of us call a book a writer's book because, me anyway, I have kind of the assumption that typically what happens is you get a writer who has some kernel of an idea of what they want to do, and then they run into artists they like or that they want to work with, or whatever, and they get together and he's like, hey, I got this idea, and then depending on what their relationship is like and what the creative process is like, it turns into their thing, together as they create whatever world that they're portraying, that they're projecting to us. But I guess I always just kind of think that, assume to some degree, I have not heard anyway much of modern creators where the artist goes, oh, I have this this kind of cool idea or whatever, and I want to work with a writer because their words or whatever. It always seems like largely it is the writer that has that idea. And that's not always the case. Clearly, like 8 that just finished up from Dark Horse was Raphael Albuquerque. It's his idea. He got together with Mike Johnson to help him square away some of the script stuff and whatnot, but it really was his genesis. So it does happen clearly back in the 70s. Kirby, I think, when he wrote, well, all of his DC stuff was all him, 100% him. So clearly all of his ideas, he just did what he wanted to do, kind of a thing, which is awesome. But yeah, I mean, I understand the criticism. I understand the frustration of artists not getting their due, not getting recognized, not it being said that it's their book, all along those lines. And I think they should be named, they should be getting the credit and that sort of thing. But when you start talking about the mechanics of the book itself, I think it gets tough for those of us who want to talk about the books. I'm listening, willing to learn as to how we should talk about the books, in what sense that works to get all of that in. But without us knowing, without us actually having the knowledge, it makes it awfully hard for us to, to talk about it in the way that I think they want us to talk about it. Anyway, there's some great articles out there. Karen Gillian has a Tumblr page. He wrote quite some time ago, but it's been regurgitated around a bunch here recently. Wrote an article about somebody talking about the great book that that him and McKelvey were working on, but it was the person that was talking about them called them Gillian Kelvey, thinking that it was he was one person on the book, and clearly that's just not knowing who all the creators are when talking about something. So I guess to some degree educate yourself, but I'm also the opinion kind of tune out some of that stuff. Talk about what you want to talk about how you want to talk about it and whatnot. But I guess fair credit is important. But as far as us knowing who did what, to some degree you feel like you want to give it to somebody. Somebody came up with the decision to do something in a certain way. So I don't know. Interesting conversation. I get it. It makes sense. But at the same time, it almost makes it feel like they don't want you to talk about the books because you're not talking about them right. Which that can't be right, I wouldn't think, because especially these independent books, the reason these independent books sell largely, I think, is because they're word of mouth. Us as consumers talking to each other about what we get. Because God knows I buy a lot of books because of a lot of you talking about those books. And plenty of you comment to me in comments and on Twitter that I'm picking up a book because, I talked about it and that you hadn't heard about it. So, I don't think they should be discouraging us from talking about it so much as how do we talk about it when we don't have the knowledge as to who did what? Just to give everybody credit all the time. It's just the Beatles. We all guess as to who wrote what songs for the Beatles, if you're familiar with the Beatles, but they're all credited as the Beatles. It's not, I think it's, or credited as, McCarthy, Lennon, you never know who it is that actually really did the song. They said it was a collaboration, but clearly somebody had a major influence over the song over the other. So does that mean these creators should have a team name? We should just call them that as opposed to, I don't know. Anyway, just interesting, food for thought, whatnot. Let's see, Comic Book Roundtable this week is back on Saturdays, usual time, 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 Eastern time. We'll be talking some books. I think I have a good mix of independent books and Marvel books and DC books. So I'll have plenty to talk about for each thing as some more of my books wind down as far as the Marvel stuff goes, and some of the DC stuff winds up, and some new number ones from Image. So we're excited about that. For those of you who actually watched a large chunk of my last What the Fugue, thanks a lot with all of the romance comics that I got. Was fun, looking through those and talking about those, and some great and interesting comments in the comments section. I think Ed comes up with a good question as to what happened to all those comics. What happened to the romance comics? How come the romance comics just all of a sudden faded out of existence? It wasn't like the consumer suddenly disappeared. The same people were still buying those books, we would guess. There was no fundamental change as far as that goes. So why did they just quit? You know, some question whether or not it's because the whole kind of anthology book, not that they're anthologies, but most of those books are made up of like 2 or 3 short little stories, just like some of the horror books that I got out of that pile are the same way, and those kind of fell out of favor, and so maybe that's why it got lost at attrition. You know, that the creators couldn't continue to fake the ridiculous stuff that they were faking and some of that. But anyway, at the end of that video, I said that there were some other books that I could have talked about that I kind of forgot about, and so I thought that I would show those books now. These are more, these are the magazine style books, just some odd ends that were in with those grocery bags of comics. Of course, once again, not in the greatest of shape. Some of them is really radically mildewed. I don't know if I'll actually keep it, but I thought it was fun just to kind of show it off. I take a drink here for a second. But yeah, so I'll show you these things. I think most of them are from the 70s. Like most of this stuff. So one of the things I got was this. This is Vampire Tales. This is April of 1974. 75 cents for this thing. So, you know, it's a magazine size thing. This has a Morbius Prowls again. This is a Marvel Monster Group magazine. So it's all Marvel stuff. You know, Night of the Snow Vampire, which is a fabulous story that's in here. So, just, you know, as far as the creators that are in this thing, Roy Thomas was the editor. Marv Wolfman was his associated editor at this time, working on the book, to see an idea of some of the large names that were attached to this thing. There's like 5 or 6 stories in here. There's some stuff that just has to do with the articles on vampires. You know, so you've got this great, it's all black and white. Got this great Lighthouse of the Possessed, which is a Morbius books, you know, story. So, you know, it's your standard, it's in black and white, but it's a, yeah, a vampire story. That superhero, in this case, it's more along the lines of what I've read of it. It's more of a supernatural tale, even more so than the superhero-esque stuff. I say that because my familiarity with the character mostly is him dealing with Spider-Man in one sense or another. So, you know, great letters column with, you know, some great vampire stuff in it. It's all has to do with vampires. But see here, this is everything you wanted to know about vampires, but we're afraid to ask. So, you know, it's just, like I said, it's just a little article about vampires as far as that goes. Let's see, I want to show you the art and that one story. Here's an article by Gary Conway. Let's see here. Let's see if I can find that one story, because it is, the art on it is, you know, there's a standard vampire slaying here. There's short stories in here on some of this stuff. Let me get to it. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is the Drifting Snow. It's written by Tony Isabella, and the artist is Esteban Moroto. There's the name. And of course, this story is presents their adaptation of Augustus de Lira's The Drifting Snow. Okay, so here's some of the art. I don't know. Well, my camera's going to pick this up with the lighting in here. But the art, the inking on this thing, and is amazing. Amazing detail. Gorgeous, gorgeous art. I'm now going to be looking for more of this artist's work. Just love the negative, positive space of some of the paneling on it. Yeah, just great line work. Reminiscent of Bill Sekowitz also, I think. Yeah. I don't know if there's influence one direction or the other, but boy, it looks a lot like it. So that story alone is just is just absolutely. Here's your snow vampire right there. She's pretty wicked looking. But yeah, just some super cool stuff. Super cool stuff. But anyway, that's a cool magazine. So that was one of the things I got there. This is another April. So April must have been a good month for him to buy this stuff. Except for this is also has a stamp on it. It's got a January stamp on it, so it was resold, I think. But this is Terror Tales. Still only 60 cents. 1974 is when this was produced out. This is featuring gruesome shock of the buried, horror fills the skeleton, and eerie suspense in fangs of the terror. And I don't know who. Terror Tales. This is an eerie publication. Yeah. So it is that. It's the old 70s pulpish in this case. Horror book. The Strange Vampire. So some fun stuff as far as horror booking. Ooh, The Thing from the Sea. Ooh. See, this is prose though. This is just a big giant prose thing. So stories I haven't read any of this stuff yet, but looks fun. So I'll be checking that out, and let's see what else. Thought this was interesting. It's not in great shape, but this is a treasure chest of fun facts. This is volume 23. This is actually, I believe, number 21. This is 1968, 10 cents. And I believe this is one of those things they use as a kind of in kids education kind of a thing, I think. But I need to look up some more information on it for sure. But it's got little bits and pieces of all different kinds of stuff. Little things in here to talk about. More cartoony stuff that talks about volcanoes. There is stuff in here, that I don't know. It's got all kinds of stuff. Other educational things about Venus flytraps and then some other silliness and stuff and whatnot. But I thought it was kind of amusing. So to check it out for sure. Really cool kind of a thing that I picked up. That is this is Sick. This is volume 63. And pretty slick publication, but it's very this is 1968 also, and see it's heavily mildewed. I don't know if you can see the brown edges on there and stuff, but it is a very much a counterculture magazine. It has more of the Mad magazine style type art in it, but not that kind of goofy humor. Not that it doesn't have humor in it. It attacks politicians, all kinds of stuff. Revolting stories, college men tell when not revolting. Just little snippets of more of the counterculture kind of stuff. Little cartoon strips, more counterculture stuff on the police. There's articles in here that are also counterculture kinds of thing. There's just some bizarre stories, like I found my guru in a hut near Perth Amboy, kind of a thing. Just really strange stuff. Our new battle cry: make love and war. On the back of it, you get your United States diploma, of America diploma, certified. Write your name in there. A Bachelor of Protests, and signed, sealed by the people who actually did the who did the book. So, just kind of fun, kind of a bizarre kind of thing. Kind of cool. And finally, a 1976 surf magazine, which will be going probably in the garbage after this because it is the worst of the mildewed kind of a thing. But it is literally a journal on surf culture, and it's got some fun stuff in it. I mean, some of the art in it is great. It's got, I don't know if I can find it in here. It's got, you know, some jokey stuff where they're taking pictures and then, you know, made comments around them and stuff. You know, did the old Photoshop way before Photoshop. Yeah, see, there's some more of it. But yeah, it's now there's some slick. This page, kitten, the animation on it, geez, the illustration on it is just great. No idea exactly who does the work on a lot of this stuff. Just says drawn by John. That's all it says about that. So yeah, but it's got all kinds of. I mean, you read it and it's got definite hardcore surf language in it. There's stuff in here I'm not even 100% sure what the lingo is because I'm a square, I guess. So yeah, but it's cool. But like I said, see, it's hardcore mildew. And look at the holes. Can you see me? Because I can see you through the holes. But Peterson's Surfer Tunes. But yeah, I don't really have a Peterson Publishing Company. That's all it says. So don't know a whole lot else about it, but pretty damn cool. No names are leaping off the page right here. Just looking over the artists and stuff like that. But yeah, kind of weird to go along with the rest of that stuff that was there. Anyway, that's it. I won't make this one super long. Probably way longer than what it needed to be. That's what's going on with me. Look forward to seeing you all on Saturday. We'll be talking some books and having a good time. And who knows? Maybe one of these days I'll get back into doing reviews and whatnot. Just still been having problems fitting the time in amongst everything else I got going on. Picked up a few other hobbies along the way here recently that have taken up more of my time to get the maximum value out of those hobbies. So not that I don't read the books and you know, talk about them on Comic Book Roundtable. That's why it isn't quite so much the priority to then talk about them personally on my own video. But I do like to do that, and I do like to talk books with my family or whoever else I can get on camera. So I would expect that at some point, but just don't hold me to it because I don't know exactly when that'll happen. Anyway, have a great day, everybody, and I'll be checking you guys out throughout the week.